Good afternoon, Dr. Z and fellow classmates. Today, I will be speaking about violent video games and the effect they have on young children and teens in today's society. During this speech, I want to cover the history of violent video games, research conducted on these games, and shared opinions. I first would like to give a brief history of violent video games and how they have evolved. One of the first games that was considered to be a violent video game was Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was a game created in the early 90s featuring different types of martial arts characters. These characters will fight using several different mixed martial art types and moves until one of the fighters finishes their opponent. The game became so popular that a movie was also made in the same decade. Another video game made during this time frame was Night Trap. During this game, players are able to watch a home filled with teenage women who are in a house full of dangerous activity. The player is then tasked to protect the woman and stop any violent threat that they see while watching over the woman in the house. Fairly recently, the video game Grand Theft Auto made its presence into the era of video games. Grand Theft Auto is also another term for motor vehicle theft. Grand Theft Auto is a game where you complete different violent missions. These missions can range from carjackings and shootings to even drug dealing. As more of these violent missions are completed, the game player can advance in the crime world. Players also have the ability to pick street fights, visit strip clubs, and join different gangs in this game. Video games are rated in several different categories. C is for early childhood, E is for everyone, E10 plus is for everyone 10 and over, T is for teen, M is for mature, 17 and over, A is for adults only, and RP is for ratings pending. Grand Theft Auto received a mature rating for its gameplay. These games have the ability to cause a detrimental effect on an adolescent's perception of violence. Violent video games have been blamed for school shootings, increases in bullying, and violence towards women. Critics argue that these games desensitize players to violence, reward players for stimulating violence, and teach children that violence is an acceptable way to resolve conflicts. CBS did an investigation with the shooter of the Sandy Hook shooting, Adam Lanza. This school shooting took place on December 14th of 2012. In their findings, they stated the shooter was motivated by violent video games and a strong desire to kill more people than any infamous mass murderer. CBS also pointed out that the killer was likely acting out of fantasies of a video game as he killed 20 first graders and 6 adults at that school. This is not to say that violent video games are the causes of these violent terroristic acts, but could be a contributing factor. There was a psychological study by 2 psychologists, Andrew Pazepsky and Netta Weinstein. They recruited over 1,000 teens in the UK between the ages of 14 through 15. The teens' parents were also involved and answered questions about the teens' aggressive behaviors. The teens were asked several different questions, including if they lose their temper or if they are usually more argumentative. The teens were also asked about the video games they play and how much time they play them. In total, the amount of video games named was 1,596 different video games. The researchers found that out of those 1,596 video games, 2/3 of them were to be deemed violent. They compared the level of video game violence with the teens' aggression. They focused on the direct relationship that the teens who spent more time playing games were more aggressive. The other point was that the teens were more aggressive, but only after spending a certain amount of time playing the violent video games. At the end of this study, the researchers found no evidence in either case. Another study conducted in 2017 by the American Psychological Association considers violent video games a risk factor for aggression. In 2017, the APA Task Force on Violent Media concluded that violent video game exposure was linked to increased aggressive behaviors, thoughts, and emotions, as well as decreased empathy. However, it is not clear whether violent video game exposure was linked to criminality or delinquency. Both studies completed that playing these video games is only considered risk factor for aggressive behavior and violence. It's not directly impact an adolescent to commit a violent act. I would like to conclude with this statement by Engadget. Video games do not cause violent behavior. There is no scientific consensus-backed research supporting the idea that playing video games, even bloody, realistic shooters, leads to real-life acts of brutality. Yes, I do agree that violent video games are a contribute to different forms of violence and anger, but I do not believe they have a direct effect on causing an adolescent to act out in violence or commit a violent act. I believe the way a child or teenager is raised, family influence, and their environment mostly determine how they will act in society and can determine behaviors. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.